Good afternoon, and welcome to the Thursday, May 8th meeting of Penfield's Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. I'm Cynette Cavaliere, the chair, so we're going to welcome you today. I think I'm going to hold off on introductions until we do a couple pieces of business. Does that work?
Yes.
We have a couple members who have advised us that they're going to be a couple minutes late, so we'll wait for that. But we'll go ahead and proceed, since we do have a quorum, with the review and approval of minutes. So, can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussions, additions, corrections?
There's a reference to, let me find it on the page. I'm so sorry. It's slow coming up, but there's a reference to a document that is in red. Oh yeah, Town's Open Space Plan. So on page 5, suggested reviewing Town's Open Space Plan, and then that document is a 1999 version, but then in that same paragraph, Matt says an update was made to this in 2006, and I'm wondering could that be the linked document?
So the document is comprehensive. It has the original 1999, but if you keep scrolling down, you'll see every version of it and update to it. So there's the 2001, 2007. So if you keep going through, it's a very long document, and it shows every iteration of it from the original proposal. And I believe I can pull it up here.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that.
No, that's fine.
I only got through the first part. Then I have no other comments.
Okay, so then that sounds like that does not need to be revised. Okay. Matt, do you want to do the call?
Yes, Schichler.
Here.
Sorry, this is for the motion to approve, so you just say aye or nay.
Sorry,
Schichler.
got lost here. Aye.
Cavaliere.
Aye.
Cheremeteff.
Aye.
Rygg.
Aye.
Okay, good. Hi, Roy.
Hello.
So we're going through a couple of items while all of you guys get here, and then we'll kind of do a little bit of a reboot. The next one is the standing report of the Monroe County Environmental Management Council. Thank you for calling that up, Matt. So this, as if you recall, I'm in 1 month in arrears on these. So this is the March meeting, although the April one has occurred. I was also not in attendance for the April one. So I'll be relying solely on the minutes from that meeting. The March meeting, though, was a review of the Buckland Creek Restoration Project from the town of Brighton. So it was kind of an interesting thing. It's actually a little bit of an old project, but it was interesting in the approach that the town used to recruit people for the project, as well as some of the outcomes. They offered various different ways of managing the runoffs in the town, as well as some stream restoration options. So it was a bit of an interesting project to see. One of the most interesting features of it was that they actually, after they did plantings, they went back through and did a validation of what plants were still alive, like a year later and 2 years later. So they ultimately ended up with a 60% chance, 60% amount of plants that survived after the second review. So it was a interesting one. The April meeting was on healthy ecosystems, so it'll be interesting to actually read that set of minutes. And then our last meeting is in May for the season, and then they have the summer off. So are there any questions on that? Okay, good. I think at this point it probably makes sense to go around and we'll do our introductions. Kevin, do you want to kick us off for that?
Sure. I'm Kevin Berry. I'm the Town Board Liaison.
Matt Prinzing, Junior Planner of the Town of Penfield.
Katie Rygg, committee member.
Ari Cheremeteff, committee member.
Cynette, again.
Pat Schichler, committee member.
Roy Green, committee member.
John Bennett, committee member.
Okay. And Stephen should be here momentarily, we're hoping. So we'll continue on with review of our required items. First of all is the town development projects.
There's none for the committee to review at this time. I will mention that the planning board is meeting tonight. It's the first time they're meeting since late February. They will be discussing an application for a Tier 3 solar array located at 1250 Northrop Road, but only to state or to discuss its intent to serve as lead agency for seeker review and to direct staff to send notice to other involved agencies. The applicant has yet to receive a jurisdictional determination letter from the DEC. So that's why it's not, right now the town is not considering it a complete application until we receive that. If they receive a determination, a positive determination, effectively saying that the project would impact the wetlands, then it would come before the EECC for review, and they would potentially have to get a wetland permit. If the determination is negative, effectively saying that the project is not impacting wetlands, then it wouldn't come before EECC. I also, like, when the application is deemed complete, I can give a more thorough update to it, but for now, I just wanted to clarify the process there, since this is very new for the town and trying to navigate the new DEC regulations for jurisdictional determination.
Okay. Can we ask a question?
Sure.
Okay, so for them to do lead agency of seeker, how, is that the norm, is for them to be the lead agency as opposed to putting it to Monroe County or a different agency?
In this particular, I mean, again, this is, for this type of development, it would be typical. I would imagine, the only thing is that this is our first Tier 3 solar development, but the way that the, essentially the renewable energy system code was written, we have guidelines on how it should be constructed and all of these methods of assessing it. So yes, it makes sense for the planning board to state their intent for development in this case. Now, there are other cases where if the review were to go to the town board based on the zoning for a particular area, like some applications within like the, there's the waterfront district, those applications go before town board. So that would be a case where potentially if there was solar or a development in that area, then the town board would be lead agency. But in this case, all the other criteria and all the other, the zoning of the area makes it so that it can be, or that the planning board could be the lead agent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, are there any requests from the town board?
None at this time.
Okay. Any updates on clean energy community actions?
Yes, so after the big push during our Arbor Day celebration and the EV car show, we have met the required number of community campaign participants for both electric vehicles and clean heating and cooling Tier 2 action grants. We'll continue to encourage participation in the campaigns to reach Tier 3. At this time, the Clean Energy Communities Program is not accepting submissions for completed high-impact actions. So essentially, even though we've met those requirements for a Tier 2 action grant, we can't actually submit that we've completed them until the program reopens and they start accepting applications. So there's kind of like a freeze on us applying for and getting the grant money.
When do they open the applications again?
We have no timeline.
Okay.
Yes. So we'll continue pushing it, trying to reach Tier 3. And just to kind of pull up here. So for electric vehicles, so we reached the threshold of 20 total participants. And to reach Tier 3, we would need to get to 70 total participants. And then for clean heating and cooling, we got to the 15 total participants. And to reach Tier 3, we'd have to reach 30.
So it was 70,
it's
it was 70 electric vehicles?
Yes, and
Okay.
that's total participants. So in the first, to
okay.
get the first grant, we got 5. To get to the next step, we got 15, for a total of 20. And now we would need to get
Plus 50.
plus 50, so
Okay.
50 additional with the 20 that we already have.
Okay.
Right.
And the heating and cooling one went from 15, and then the next total is?
Is 30.
30, okay, so additional 15.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Now, what do they classify as a participant? Because, just kind of noticing from the EV show that we had back on the 26th, there was a heck of a lot more than 70 participants.
You have to have a qualifying purchase for the EV one. So you have to have purchased a new EV and be a resident of the town of Penfield and submit proof of that purchase. I can't recall what the date is, but I believe it's sometime 2021.
2021
After
was,
that, yeah,
yes.
late 2021. If you've purchased a new EV after that date and submit that to the town, then you would be our participant in the campaign.
Got it.
And for the clean heating and cooling, it's if you've had an installation or if you've purchased a heat pump during that time window. And same thing if you submit that to the town. So yeah, like participants in the campaign portion of the classes, that's where you can learn information about it, but the pulling it back into and getting the credit towards the grant is when we actually receive proof of purchase.
Got it.
Yeah. Or installation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That ends the review of required items, so we can move on to old business. We've kind of labeled or put these in an order of increasing amount of interest and discussion. The first one's a little bit of a wrap-up for us, starting with the Arbor Day celebration wrap-up. So I want to thank those that could join on that day there. I know that we gave away 200 trees in a record amount of time, it seemed. Despite the weather, had very good turnout, and the amount of trees we gave out meant that we at least had 100 residents come and claim trees from us. We did not think to do an actual number of people, but knowing that they could each take up to 2, that's at least a good judge that we had more than that, because some did indeed only take 1. So do you have other incidental stories or information on the event that you guys want to include?
You were inside this year?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes. So that was one of just a few comments of kind of how it was laid out. We had the table front and center, which is kind of how we had it last year. Like as soon as you walked in the community room, and we never really had a queue. This year, people were lined up all the way out the door. And so if we were to do it again, we would try and have the table in the back of the room so that if you're waiting in line, you're at least in the community room with all the other tables. Another comment was to have like an actual Town of Penfield tablecloth at our table. And so we've already, I think we put in a purchase order for those. Katie had mentioned like if we potentially could look at like some sort of ticket system where like you can take a ticket. My only concern is that, if somebody grabs a ticket, I'm number 10, and then I go out and look at a bunch of EVs, and I come back and all the trees are gone, so I
All the
think
trees that you wanted were gone.
Right, yeah, exactly. So I think that more if we just focus on, hopefully we're outdoors, but if we're inside again, I think that we can at least avoid the queuing in the hallway and move the line quickly if everything is more like just deeper in the room, and we can have the line just snaking through where all the tables are. So
Either that or we need a band out there entertaining them while
Yeah.
they're standing in the line.
Or heaters,
Yeah.
if it was chilly.
Although I'm sure they found it quite entertaining because I kept going out taking photos of people lined up to get trees because I
Yeah.
thought that was so exciting to
Yeah.
see.
Cynette had mentioned potentially having 2 tables, because we had a table with all of the handouts that we had, and then also people, getting trees, and some people were waiting in line so long, they would get their tree and just move along. So, well, wait, we have all these great things to talk to you about. So I guess staffing-wise, would you feel that we would have enough people to man handing out trees and then another table just to talk about?
Yes, we certainly did.
All right. So yeah, we'll
Yeah.
plan for that next year to have 2 tables, one
Yeah.
just for the tree giveaway, and then right next to it just for the materials and to talk EECC business. The plant sale was announced or opened December 20th. And in 2024, it was the 3rd weekend in April. This year, it was the 4th weekend. So, yeah, it's tough to know that the EV car show organizers had discussed like pushing it into May. And I guess the earliest, or also discussing like, can we get an advertisement in the winter rec catalog? I don't know if we could do that, only because we would have to know the date of our event before they announce when the actual weekend sale will be. And considering it's been 2 different weekends just in the last 2 years, I'm not sure, if we can reliably say when it'll be. It'll be sometime in late April. But
Is it tied to Earth Day? Is it the
I didn't see it
Not
tied to it.
necessarily?
Yeah,
Okay.
not necessarily. So, to be
Arbor
determined,
Day.
I guess, yeah.
It would make more sense if it was tied to Arbor Day.
Right, sure. But no, I didn't see a connection between the dates and either of those holidays. So, Cynette had discussed, is there a way that we can properly store the saplings for a week or 2? I think we can talk to facilities or parks and figure out if there's some way to do it. But yeah, just if we can find a way to reliably store them and choose whatever date we want, there's potential for that. But as of right now, there's no plan to set a particular date. I think the only thing I wanted to mention there is that, based on when they announce the sale, we're kind of limited as to when we can put it in the catalog, unless we confirm that we can store them for up to 3 weeks, and we want to set it for May or so. Yeah.
Yes, which I know, I'm pretty sure you can. But I think it was also key, though, just to put it on our agenda in December to look at selections so that we
Sure.
can definitely get whichever plants it is that we want. I think we ultimately ended up great this year, but I believe one of them was a second choice for us, so. I
Yes,
think it
the
was-
white spruce was, well, no, the white spruce was what when we were talking with I can't remember which company it is, but they were the ones that we ordered the trees through for the ones that were planted at Rothfuss Park. And we were asking about which of the species they would recommend, and they recommended white spruce. I can't recall what our first choice was, but they said that there was some blight against those right now, and so they would advise against it. So yeah, the eastern red buds were all gone by 10/20. So that was definitely the most popular one. And then the red maples and white spruce were all given away by about 11. So yeah, very popular event this year.
Yes.
How are the trees doing that were planted in Rothfuss Park? Has anybody checked on them?
I haven't checked in personally. I can ask our parks foreman to see how they're doing. But yeah, typically we'll have some type of what do we call it?
Dedication?
No, well, I should say there is the sign. There's the Red Maple Grove Peace sign
Right.
there. But no, there's some security on it so that if they do die in like this first month or whatever, then we can get a replacement tree.
Okay,
From my
like a
understanding.
guarantee, a warranty?
Yeah,
or
exactly. Their
something.
warranty. There we go. That's
yeah.
the word I was looking for.
And this time it was oaks or,
It was a mix of
Mix.
red maples and white oaks.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have those trees been logged in the 25 million trees by 2033 yet? The New York
Yes.
State program?
Yes. I've been meaning, I wanted to go in and check, because that was one of the things that we were encouraging residents to track their trees on there. So if any resident did, then it should pop up on the tracker, but I haven't gone on there yet. I also figured that many people probably weren't going and planting them the same day, but hopefully by now those trees are in the ground. So, yeah. So any other comments about the Arbor Day celebration EV car show?
The only other one I was just going to make was it seemed like a really good turnout both for the car show and the booths inside, especially knowing that it was also Good Neighbor Day.
Yeah.
So we had several groups of citizens out helping neighbors as well. So I think it was a great day for Penfield to do that. So.
Can I add one comment? So Stephen Daly, member, thank you for bearing with me and running a few minutes behind. But I thought the event was absolutely fantastic, and I couldn't believe the turnout when it came to the trees. So I think the town should be really proud of this event, and it's something I think we should all look forward to next year.
Yeah.
There's been times we've had quite a few leftover trees, so that's pretty good that they were all adapted. So.
Yes.
Yeah, so there was discussion with staff of like, we should double it next year. I'm like, well, let's hold off on that.
Incremental.
Because last year,
Maybe not
even just last year,
maybe
we
not
had
double.
Right, yes, but, I think adding diversity, so maybe, another plant type, another plant group maybe, and having another 50 of those, because I think even if we have 50 left over, then, that's not that big of a burden for the Trails Committee or the Parks Department to find a home for them. But yeah, we can talk about that later in the year when it gets closer to the plant sale opening up.
Yeah, I think it was nice to be able to send folks who were disappointed that they were too late over to the Sierra Club
Sure,
giveaway.
yeah.
So that might be another consideration
Okay.
as we're looking at possible dates, like actually trying to tie it to that as well.
Okay.
Or right before it so that they could go the next weekend
Yeah.
or something.
Okay.
Very good. Our next topic is community choice aggregation update.
Yeah, so speaking with our managing partner for the CCA at Good Energy, energy markets have experienced a sharp decline as a result of recent economic and policy pressures. So at this time, Good Energy is employing a wait-and-see method before issuing any formal RFP for the CCA. If residents are interested in learning more about the CCA, we obviously direct them to penfieldcca.com. I'll pull that up here. This is where you can find the rates, so Penfield Green and Penfield 100. There's also information about whether you can enroll or opt out. It's free to opt out. There's no fees associated with enrolling or opting out. If you want to learn more about the current RG&E supply rates, I'll include a link to this in the minutes, but essentially RG&E posts the RG&E rate. You can get the supply rates for, I think it goes back all the way to 2010 or maybe earlier, but you can just select, if you're looking at residential or if you want to look at non-residential rates, then you can submit that. And then the first section is showing you
Can you make that just a little bigger for us, or at least for me? Thank you.
So this is the customer charge and delivery charge. But if you want to look at trends or just daily supply charge histories, you can put any dates here and go back. Again, I can't. Oh, so January 1st, 2007 is as far back as you can go. But yeah, if you want to compare or look at how the rates have been changing through this year, I looked at the numbers for the last year, and it looks like at least in April of this year, the RG&E rates were just above the Penfield 50 rate. So at that point, you were paying less than what the RG&E rate, supply rate was. But for the most part, during this period, so the rate has been in effect since December of 2023, and for the most part, that Penfield 50 and the Penfield, right? Am I getting that right? The the Penfield Green and the Penfield 100 generally has been above the RG&E rates during that time. And then if you're interested in other energy offers, so if you're, looking at looking outside of what the Penfield CCA offers or what RG&E offers, you can go to the New York State Power to Choose website, and again, I'll have the link in the minutes, but you just put in your zip code, and it will give you have the choice of electric or gas. I'll choose electric here, and this is essentially a marketplace where you can compare prices from different ESCOs that are available in your area. And you can, so a lot of these rates you're seeing right up ahead are variable, but if you're looking to do a comparison to the fixed rate that the Penfield CCA offers, if you go to offer type and look at fixed and filter based on that, then you can look at the other fixed rate options that compare them to what Penfield CCA offers, if that's what you're looking at. But,
Could you show the renewable energy option down at the bottom? Like 50%. Oh, sorry. Are these
well,
all?
I'm just renewable energy.
I see.
Yeah, so a lot of these ones up top have the 50, 100, 100. So there are options on here, and you can, renewable energy info. So if you select yes in this filter, then you can find ones that strictly have that offered.
Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, and so we're hoping that within the next month we have more details from Good Energy. Probably provide another update at our June meeting.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? When we first started this process, so theoretically 4+ years ago, it was the Energy and Environmental Advisory Committee that really kind of was in the trenches on this one. So it's interesting to see it, 2 cycles later.
Yeah. Are these websites linked somewhere on our EECC page?
No. And I don't want to preempt putting out too much information about this, because I think the time to really push any information on this is when we actually have the RFP. Because that's where we're going to be looking at what the new rate will be, potentially, and have comparisons to what the RG&E rates have been for the 3 months since June and beyond. But yeah, I think that at that time we could consider adding the links then. But it would just be, I think once we have more information from Good Energy and can navigate the next steps along with them, then we can really start advertising this and getting more information out. I hesitate to tell people look at these prices and then tell them to look at it again a month ago. It's I just checked it last month. Things change pretty drastically in the energy market, so we'd like to put all the communication at a time when people need to be considering this and looking at and considering what the actual RFP is offering. So
Okay. Sure.
I'd like to share that Color Penfield Green did a little bit of number crunching in that first 2 years when it was really successful, and we had a lot of folks who had opted or who defaulted into the program. I think a lot of people opted out once the price went up, but it was 50% green energy mostly. Some folks were opting it up to the Penfield 100, but those first 2 years resulted in the carbon equivalent of removing 5,388 gas cars off the road for a year. That's really significant, and we were saving money at the same time. So anyway, I think that was extremely successful, but just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's good to know somebody was doing those kind of calculations. Okay, any other questions or comments on that? So really more to come.
Yes.
Okay, so our next is kind of the meat of the meeting here. This is the EPOD map revision proposal. You didn't get that out. Matt's put a lot of work into this, so I'll let you go ahead and do the introduction, Matt, and...
Yeah, so by now, we received comments from most of the EECC members, but just to summarize for those watching, these are, this document is a town staff document, which is really showing the process by which we are going to be updating the EPOD maps. It gives a background, the reasoning behind the map update, the proposal, so the actual methods for updating the map, and the protocol, a step-by-step guide, the parameters, so at any time when an update's being proposed, we need to document, when the data was collected, and what other information relevant to the update is, needs to be included. The results, so just having a factual documentation of what has changed, and so is the area changed, linear, miles of streams, things like that, having those quantifiable summaries there, and then any observations that may not be, are more qualitative rather than quantitative. And just a note there that I added that while the document cites specific protocols, parameters, and results of the latest EPOD revisions, the user, in this case being me, but whoever is doing the EPOD mapping updates in the future, should consider any new or updated protocols or parameters when a revision is proposed. So with that, I'll just jump into the woodland EPOD. So probably the biggest need to change this is that just our maps are a bit dated. From my understanding and the research and looking into this, a lot of our maps kind of date back to data that was collected in the 70s and 80s. There are cases, like just looking at the map, where woodlands just arbitrarily follow a parcel boundary, although, just looking at the aerial imagery, you would expect that the canopy expands beyond that. So I wanted to look at ways of quantifying the canopy coverage that wouldn't rely on visual inspection of aerial imagery, but actually measure the canopy. So that's where we took the LiDAR data. So LiDAR is where we use an active sensor. So the sensor's a pulse down from aerial surveyor that it shoots down to the ground, and it collects information as it's hitting objects. So it's not just like going through trees or through buildings and going to the ground. It's collecting data as it goes to the surface and comes back. So we're able to take very accurate measurements of all of the structures and matter above the surface. So while it's not a direct measurement of foliage or anything like that, it does measure, and also LiDAR is collected over several months. It's not a single snapshot. So you're getting readings of the canopy coverage at different times of year, not just when it's just bare trees. There's also foliage or leaves on the trees, and that information is being collected. So so that's more of just like the technical way. I get one thing that we had a comment on. I think Katie resolved it, but I just wanted to highlight that in order to ensure that we were only measuring canopy, I set the limit for what we were basically defining as canopy as anything over 11 meters or 36 feet, because we wanted to make sure that we weren't including residential structures. And so the limit for, or the height limit for residential structures in all zoning districts is 35 feet. So anything above that, we can reasonably assume is going to be tree canopy coverage. So again, the LiDAR, we're able to show where the ground surface is and then measure anything above that. So we're effectively filtering out anything below 36 feet, and then everything above 36 feet and is part of a continuous swath. It's all a continuous area of 5 acres or more, then it gets defined as a woodland EPOD.
Matt, can I interrupt you with
Yes.
a question about that? So I don't have a good sense of what that means for measuring tree canopies as far as, how with that cutoff of 36 feet, I mean, that seems fairly high to me, but are there tree canopies that wouldn't be captured in that? Like, if there is, what percentage wouldn't be captured by that?
I can't say for certain. I will say from the results, there was 71% overlap between the original EPOD and the proposed EPOD. The area removed from the existing EPOD is, roughly 1,614 acres. The area added is roughly 1,362 acres. So there was a net decrease of 252 acres, or minus 4.6%. So yes, there could be understory or shorter canopies that we're not capturing, but I think that if the alternative is to try and eyeball where some of these are, like, we need some form of having a method for measuring tree canopy that can be replicated. So when we get new LiDAR data, we can run this code and get very similar results and measure it in the same fashion, whereas previously trying to rely on aerial imagery or just drive-by or site visits and kind of just hand drawing where the lines should be, it's subject to a lot of bias, or there's not a good system for having something that can be replicated over the years. So yes, we may be missing areas that have shorter canopy. I think that this method going forward will accurately measure those areas of substantial canopy.
And just another follow-up question about that. So in theory, so we could follow me here. So
absolutely.
We decrease the height, say we make it 24 feet, I don't know, 30 feet. And then, because our concern is, the reason why we set that is not because we don't, it's because we don't want to mix it up with houses.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, is that something that could just be spot checked on the back end? Like, here's a house that's clearly not a tree. I mean, so to me, it would be a little bit of additional work on the back end. I don't know exactly what that would look like. Some manual cross-checking, but setting. I mean, ultimately, we want to capture the EPODs, right? So, understanding that we don't want houses to be EPODs.
Right.
So at least to me, I hear you on efficiency purposes, makes a lot of sense. But is there just a quick manual check, relatively quick manual check that can be done on the back end to exclude houses?
Can you use a aerial photography overlay and just kind of see if it looks like trees versus?
And manually filter out all of the homes in Penfield?
Not manually, but could you do it through the ArcGIS?
No, I mean,
It's
you
like
would
a
have
layer,
to, you would have to identify or write some type of script that is like, this is a home, and essentially filter out all of those. And there is the New York State DC, I believe it's DC, maintains a database of what they have as building footprints. It's not all that accurate, and it's constantly changing. And I think that, yeah, I mean, there's potentially a way to do it, but it's certainly not a quick process. And I think that just running this run of code, so this analysis, I ran the script and walked away for 6 hours. That's how long it took the computer to actually go through the LiDAR data and process it and deliver this product. So.
It's amazingly fast.
Right. Sure.
No, but it really
And
is.
that's not your time, that's computer time.
Exactly.
right?
That's me
So-
walking away and just letting the computer do its job.
Right.
But this type of filtering out of specific structures, yeah, I would have to consult other. Yeah, there's potential there, but I don't have a figure off the top of my head that could say like it's going to be X amount of hours. And also, I think we'd have to consider, all right, so what number are we dropping it to? Are we going to drop it to 10? Are we going to drop it to 15? You know, what is the criteria? And it's not as if the DEC says like this is what tree canopy coverage is. There's really no other municipality in our area, and I can't think of any other mapping in the state that is trying to do quite what we're doing here. I mean, that being said, I borrowed, or I reference the West Virginia consortium for the code that I use. So it's not as if this is a completely, new idea. It's not, we're not, rewriting anything. This is a known way of measuring structures above the surface. It's just that we're using it to define effectively what is tree canopy coverage in the town of Penfield and measure that. But right now, we've settled on that anything above 36 feet and is 5 acres of continuous coverage that is that qualifies as woodland EPOD. But yeah, I would, struggle to figure out where we would go below or above, what we would settle on for the qualifying factor for, yeah.
My perspective on this, I suppose, is that, to me, if there was some science, technical-based reason that tree canopy just isn't less than 36 feet, but like right now, it just seems like we're drawing that line because it's more efficient. That makes sense to me. And I guess to me, I would be curious to know if there was some idea of how low a tree canopy can be, because it doesn't seem like we have that information right now.
No. And I think that it's going to be a different answer if you're in the Adirondacks compared to here, or, in Alaska. It's a very, it's a complicated question. So you would basically be asking for a prescription for the town of Penfield or Monroe County, this area. Like, what would we determine? And an urban environment, not, and that's the thing too, is that we have half of the town is classified as urban, the rest is agricultural. So, getting a prescription of like what's really, true canopy, or what would be considered canopy coverage in West Penfield may be different than East Penfield.
We would be aware of the areas that are reduced, like what you said there's be a reduction in the EPOD, so we
Yes.
know what that area is that's no longer included?
Yeah, so there was some areas, one of the most conspicuous ones was a part of Thousand Acre Swamp, where it's, just an area.
Okay.
If I go to,
I guess the question I wanted to proceed with then is, would it be, well, it's more work, but would it be just to look at what this policy or this method of measuring is actually doing to spot check some of those areas, to go, either go out and look at it or some other means, which I don't know, but to actually see, is this working, or, wow, the 10 that we checked all would have really been an EPOD if we had a lower height criteria.
Sure, yeah, I guess that we could consider drafting versions of the map that are less than 36 feet, and see how much the area changes, what new areas are identified, if any. Yeah, I think so far, when I've been going through and reviewing it, and if there were significant changes, so this was the one example that I just mentioned, of 1,000 Acre Swamp, where this, roughly 30 to 40 acre section was classified as woodland EPOD. Now we're not considering it EPOD, and then this is just, so this is aerial photograph facing west, and this is the portion that's being excluded, and it's effectively all wetlands. There's no
Okay.
tree canopy in this area. So it shouldn't be, based on what the EPOD code states is woodland EPOD, it shouldn't be classified. It
Okay.
could have just been that in previous mapping, it's just like, well, it's a big brown area surrounded by trees, so it should be included. It's like, well, it is protected as a wetland, but it shouldn't necessarily be classified as a
Woodland.
woodland based on the classification we have in the EPOD code.
So I guess what I'm asking, you just gave an example of
Right.
what I'm
Yeah.
proposing as, a spot check for certain areas, just to check the validity of
Right.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
Does Stephen, I don't know if that
So
is
Matt,
some sort
then,
of a compromise.
Yeah, I mean, I ultimately would like some sense of whether 36 is really over-inclusive or under-inclusive, and I'd be curious.
Sure.
I have a question. So would this be somehow verified during the tree survey when that happens?
No, because that tree survey is only town trees per se,
it's
not
not
necessarily everybody's trees.
So these are private as well? Okay, got it.
Yes.
So would you have an opposite problem as well? So if there could be like buildings that are not residential that are higher than 36 feet potentially, but you'd know those, or those would be weeded out somehow?
So generally speaking, buildings of that size, like commercial buildings, don't have, they're definitely not over 5 acres in size, and they're not adjacent to tree canopy coverage.
What about
I can think of only one example that I've come across in my spot checking, and the water tower at Harris Whalen, that got included. But I haven't seen any other cases where a structure was included in the woodland EPOD mapping, or this revised woodland EPOD mapping, primarily because those larger buildings typically aren't next to tree canopy. They usually have some type of buffering from the woodland, so.
Okay.
And I should say, like, that case of, and we're going to have it. Like, I'm not saying that these maps are perfect by any means. When we get to steep slopes, I'll show examples where, LiDAR data it's a snapshot of that time. And if there's active construction in an area, it's going to show those piles of dirt on the construction site, and that will be identified as steep slope at that time. Now, 5 years from later now, it would be changed into a residential neighborhood that was approved even before that dirt pile was put there, but that person's home now is identified as a steep slope. But that's a case where we can use common sense to be like, okay, this is a residential neighborhood that doesn't have steep slopes. We're not going to treat it as a steep slope area.
So would there be a process for updating those situations?
No. So this is another case where we don't change the maps in a case like that. Another case is, with, what's the development that Wellsbrook. So the Wellsbrook EPOD was impacted, and there's going to be a, residential street now in the middle of that EPOD. I can't change the boundaries of that until I have new LiDAR data, right? So I can't arbitrarily move the boundary because I have nothing to measure until I have new LiDAR data. So if a resident in that neighborhood comes in and wants to do a regulated activity in that area, it comes before I mean, it depends. It could be somebody wants to put in a shed or, literally anything that may be construed as a regulated activity. It would go to first the Planning and Engineering Department to check and see if the application is complete. And at that time, the way that the code is written, it defaults to the town engineer to determine the EPOD boundary and whether or not this actually qualifies as a regulated activity in a woodland EPOD. And in that case, if, we do a site visit and like, okay, we're standing in someone's front yard and they want to, they want to do some sort of regulated activity, but clearly this is an area that the EPOD was, they received an EPOD permit to remove the EPOD here, and so they wouldn't necessarily in this, this is a purely hypothetical situation, but in this case, they wouldn't need to get the EPOD permit because they're not actually in an EPOD anymore because it was removed when that development went in. But again, we don't change the map in that case because there's nothing to physically tell me where the new boundary should be. Is that making sense?
Yeah, so the LiDAR is 2017, and you don't have updated LiDAR, probably
Right.
10 years maybe between?
I've
roughly?
heard that we are expecting some this year.
Okay.
But yes, I haven't, the New York State has like proposed LiDAR areas, and we're not on that, but that's the New York State, and FEMA does LiDAR mapping of this region, and could be that the county goes out and gets a consultant to do this area again. So while the state doesn't have us slated for this year, it's possible that either the county or some other agency decides that we need new LiDAR mapping. So, yeah.
So can I ask a question?
Sure.
This methodology seems reasonable to me, but just for the record, is there any other methodologies that could have been considered for developing these EPOD maps in lieu of, in short of doing like surveys or aerials or drone footage and stuff like that? But is there anything else that could have been done?
There's a method of measuring tree canopy, or really just tree growth based on, it's still remote sensing, but you're looking at the near infrared and infrared reflection or the radiation from the canopy coverage. The problem with conducting that analysis in the town of Penfield is that we don't have high enough resolution data to get accurate. At the most raw form of the LiDAR data that we have, it's accurate, within a sub-foot. So we're able to get very, very accurate measurements of features above the surface here. But if we were to look at that spectral imagery, it's closer to like 30 by 30 meter resolution. So, it's, you can, get that sort of information if you were to hire a consultant and put that sensor onto a drone or have an aerial flight done, but this is data that's free and openly available through the county, and we're able to, do this analysis here in-house with the information we have available. So, yes, there are alternatives to measuring tree canopy, but this was seen to be the most efficient and a method that we can replicate over time.
Okay, so I understand the rationale behind the height. However, I'm kind of also curious as to the impact, because I really can't believe that a residential house would impact an acre, in terms of the size of houses. If they were in amongst trees to the left, to the right, to the back, to the front, even a good-sized house would really not show as much of an increase in acreage to really trigger that, are they over the 5 or not over the 5?
But if you have a wooded area that is below the 5 acres, and suddenly you're adding every single home in that housing tract, that may push it above, and it technically shouldn't, because now you're including all of this surface area that isn't even tree canopy coverage.
Yeah, I just think, I can't imagine houses being, breaking up enough to really kind of show that. It would be interesting to see a demonstration of that.
So I haven't added any of these draft maps to the public GIS viewer because that would only create confusion. It's even creating confusion that it's on our internal GIS viewer, and staff are like, which one am I supposed to be using? So just to give an example of what some of these EPODs are going to look like now. So this is an area that wasn't previously mapped as an EPOD, but will be now. So this is, we have the EPOD draft area in brown here, but this is a section which it's a contiguous grouping of tree canopy coverage that snakes through a residential area. So now if we add all the area of the homes that are near it, you're going to have a lot more pockets that are being added to it because of the area of the roofs in the neighborhood, if they're adjacent to the tree canopy coverage. So I think it will be a more common occurrence than you think.
Yeah, although at the same time, I'm looking at the little white rooftop showing up, and it doesn't seem like, it seems like that would waver the boundary a little bit, but not necessarily have that impact that you're describing.
Potentially. Yeah.
And it's also hard to say how tall are those houses? Are they 30 foot? Are they 24
Again,
foot?
I don't know
Right.
how low we would go, though, so.
Can you check that one, doing the LiDAR spot check and change that one spot to a lower height?
I wouldn't want to base changing our entire methodology based on just one neighborhood.
Okay.
I would want to do it for the entire town and look at it at a comprehensive level. So.
I don't know, I guess for 6 hours of computer chugging and the 2 hours that it takes you to set it up and the 2 hours it takes you to review it afterwards, it might be interesting to pick a lower level and then do a comparison to see.
To clarify, I wouldn't need to run the script for another 6 hours. Essentially, all the data the LiDAR data has been processed, and now I can effectively change whatever. Like, that wouldn't be that too time consuming to change what the height limit is. So we can draft other versions, but I think that we need to consider why are we changing it and how
And
do
at the
we
same time,
justify the
looking
change?
at a 4% loss since the late 80s, is that when you were describing the last
Potentially, I
point
honestly, and it
is
based
not,
on,
is pretty reasonable given the amount of new housing
Yes, yeah.
and stuff that we have in Penfield.
Right.
So it is a reasonable outcome, in all honesty, I will agree with that.
Yeah, I think it might be worth doing a sensitivity analysis, though, on what that lower number means versus 36, it seems reasonable, but if you go up or you go down, like a standard deviation, what does that do for it?
Sure.
And just a basic sensitivity analysis. To your point, it wouldn't be too much work to do.
And I wasn't advocating to go through the whole thing, but just do, like Cynette mentioned, well, the houses are away from maybe the tree line and that one that you had up there a little bit, would it really show a wavery, and how high are they? Just as Cynette raised some issues, well, what would it look like? And to say, well, just throw it on there, that would be the answer to those questions.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, so I can draft some other versions and conduct a sensitivity analysis and figure out, what the Yeah, exactly what the differences would be if we were to do plus or minus 5, 10 feet or so.
I mean, I am curious, since you've introduced me to our New York State DEC forester, if they would have some sort of feel for what kind of average canopy heights we have in our area, just to see if that's something that's a data point to say, and, he comes back and he says, well, the average canopy height is, 25 feet, then, maybe we've missed the mark.
Okay, yeah, I can consult as well.
I'm thinking about the wetland issue. You stated there's a wetland there, but aren't cottonwoods get pretty tall and condensed? Are they not considered part of the tree canopy?
I mean, I'm not measuring any specific species. It's just features that are, if the tree canopy touches, so that's the thing too, is that the data, is accurate within less than a foot. So if you're having a cottonwood that is next to the rest of the tree canopy, then yes, or if it's within the tree canopy, then it's being included. But if you have an individual tree in the middle of a wetland,
That won't
no.
be counted. But if there's a cluster within a wetland, if it's under 5 acres, it will not be counted?
No.
Okay.
Any
It just has
cluster
to
of
be
trees under 5
adjoining
acres is
another,
not.
okay, got
Yeah.
it. Perfect.
Which is where the neighborhood's especially interesting to see that, because it really does show that it can be a fairly narrow swatch, still connecting and add up. Because I think when we think 5 acres, we think just a
One
big blob as
right.
opposed
Yeah.
to like a,
It's literally if the tree canopy is touching, it's continuous. So
Right.
you have woodland epods that now are spanning streets because you have a tree canopy that encompasses, you have 2 trees in the right of way, the canopy covers. And so there's going to be cases like that now.
well, I do kind of want to keep moving through these.
Sure.
So I think that as far as the woodland one, is that the only point of interest, contention at this point, is that height? Are there any other comments that need resolved in there? Okay. So Matt, if you want to go ahead and move into the stream, that's the
Streams.
next one?
Yes, so the streams, we had an update, a minor update, I would say, in how we define streams, or we really just changed the name from watercourse epod to stream epod, but we're still including portions of properties within 75 feet of the center line of natural or man-made streams, creeks, or tributaries as classified by the New York State DEC. Boundaries shall not include drainage swales. So that's directly from the local law number 2, 2025, adopted in March of this year. So the key thing there is that as classified by the New York State DEC, the 2 classifications that the DEC has, if you go to their environmental resource mapper, you have the water quality classification layer, and then you have these priority water bodies list, the PWL water bodies, and there's often cases where they don't quite match. PWL streams are assessed every 2 years, whereas the water quality classification was the last assessed in 2021. It's going to be reassessed in 2026, and after that, that's the end of the cycle. The DC may renew that. They may modify how often they're changing that, but that water quality, that WQC water quality classification may potentially be changing its cycle methodology. I can't say for certain. But yes, so the goal of the update was to ensure that our stream EPOD includes all of those classified streams, as well as the priority water bodies list, those streams. To clarify, all the priority water body list streams are classified, but I'll show an example here. There's some odd cases where the PWL stream is mapped and it shows that it's classified, and then you go over to the water quality classifications mapping and it's not there. So
So which one do you assume is correct?
We include both in the EPOD.
It just makes it more challenging for your mapping piece of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is a portion of Mill Creek. The blue line here is an example of I believe it's a Class C stream. Yeah, so the water quality classification line has this as a Class C stream, but it doesn't have this line here.
Class C is impaired, though, isn't it? I thought.
So,
Does that matter?
Yeah, its quality doesn't matter, just that it's classified.
I got it.
So, and then here it's showing that the priority water bodies list has this as a Class B. So it's just a case of we're trying to be inclusive of everything that is classified by the DEC, but the mapping isn't always consistent or doesn't always include all of those areas. So we're trying to make it so that it's including all of those streams that are classified. The other part of this is that a lot of times the DEC mapping doesn't accurately show where a classified stream is conveyed by storm sewer. So there may have been a development and they modified how the stream formed. They have a conveyance that brings the water, diverts the water away from the development. And a lot of the times the mapping won't show that. So we have cases where, like the Walmart is an example of, they have, since it was developed, there's a stormwater management facility in the parking lot that diverts all the water from, I'm pointing at the computer like you can see it. So the stormwater gets diverted and ends up discharging here into the stream. And so instead of having the EPOD running through the parking lot, all this developed area, the revised stream, has it starting where it actually discharges out of the stormwater treatment facility and goes into the stream, because these aren't open waters of New York State. That doesn't start until you actually get there. So, and there's a lot of other cases throughout the town where the mapping is just off by a little bit, and we looked at the digital surface model from the LiDAR to figure out where the streams are, as well as just using or looking at visually conspicuous waterways. So here's an example of where the DEC mapping is showing the stream kind of flowing through these areas, but if I just turn off what we're proposing, it's clear that the stream is more accurately here. So we're including that portion of the stream, or mapping it where it should be in this case. And I brought the 2021 map just to show that previously or currently our stream EPOD map includes streams that aren't classified by the DEC. Despite the code saying that it shall include those natural or man-made streams, creeks, or tributaries as classified by the DEC. So a part of this, or the prudential removals of the from the stream EPOD include those streams that are either no longer classified, or there was also a pretty significant reduction. If we look at the current EPOD, there's a lot of streams that aren't in the town. So streams that, extend beyond the boundary, or there's this portion of the stream that goes all the way up to Lake Ontario. So the new EPOD is just extending to the extent of the town line, because we don't have jurisdiction outside of the town. Now, obviously, if there's an application that it's affecting a stream that flows into Webster, we can get mapping that shows that, but for strictly speaking, for showing the extent of the stream EPOD, we are kind of clipping it to just the town line. Okay.
So at the time, it was really just showing the presence of a connecting stream, not necessarily within the town of Penfield.
Right, yeah. If I had to guess how it was done previously, they probably just, chose, or they selected all of the mapped features that started in Penfield and just threw them in, whereas here we're more precisely clipping them to the boundary.
And I would assume Arundecoit Bay has its own level of restriction on properties abutting the bay as it is.
Yeah, so kind of what you're saying there is that, while we're not including the Arundecoit Bay as a stream EPOD, I believe that's it. There are portions of the Arundecoit Bay that are mapped as wetlands, or those are more accurately the previously mapped wetlands. And then it's also I think I gotta zoom in.
Isn't it the LaSalle's Landing District, too?
Yes, but I was more thinking of it's within the floodplain.
Okay.
So this yellow region here is where it's identified as being in the 100-year, right? Yeah, the 100-year floodplain. So while, again, it's the way that it was classified before is that you had the stream and the buffer, and so technically the extent of the EPOD is just 75 feet from that center line. So, nobody's developing in the center of Lake Ontario. I guess, yeah, I'm not even going to go there. But yeah, the more restrictive EPOD, certainly in this case, is the FEMA floodplain.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So do we have any concerns, any remaining comments on the stream process? It sounds like you're actually trying to balance almost a lot more because you're dealing with two sets of classifications and maps that the line on the map doesn't necessarily match the aerial view as it is.
Right, yeah.
What's the percent differences between the proposed and the current?
So the removal of non-classified streams, as well as editing stream locations based on LiDAR and aerial imagery, resulted in an additional 17 point. Yeah, it's tough to do a comparison because a huge portion of the change is just removing streams that aren't even in the town. So just doing that, removing the streams that are outside of the town resulted in a 41-mile reduction, or 27.3%. So almost a third of the EPOD was outside of the town. And then the reduction of just those streams that are either non-classified or, just editing where the line was based on the LiDAR and visually conspicuous waterways in the aerial imagery, led to a 17.3% reduction.
So it's a 42% reduction roughly?
Yeah, so the original stream EPOD was 150 miles. It's now 83. So that being said, 41 miles shouldn't have been in the EPOD to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So.
All right. Good.
No issues, so we'll move on to floodplain. Just also trying to keep an eye on the clock.
Yes, this one should be very straightforward. This update has already occurred. So last year, the town board adopted to update two firm panels, these two cited here, on June 5th, 2024. The updates were made effective July 30th, 2024. So essentially, FEMA made updates to the floodplain boundaries along Lake Ontario and Arundecoit Bay. So two of those panels are in Penfield. Yeah, so these two here. So give it a second to look here. Yeah, so this panel showing that it was made effective last year, and this one as well. all the other panels in Penfield haven't been updated since 2008. And yeah, if I go back in here. Yeah, so the update resulted in a 6.55 acre decrease in the floodplain EPOD area. Included just a map that shows those areas that, so the new flood hazard area, it was only reductions in the 100-year floodplain. Neither the floodway or the 500-year floodplain were edited, but essentially these dark gray areas were previously mapped as floodplain, and they are no longer mapped as such. So the new boundary is this orange gold kind of layer, and so again, it was, you know, relatively minor adjustment there, and again, this has already taken place. In order to, so these firm panels, those are the flood insurance rate maps. The town adopted that, or the town board adopted it to make them effective to comply with the requirements of the town's, I think it's chapter 120, the flood, the stormwater management chapter. I have to pull it up, but yeah, so this one, again, I think that the main changes or the documentation here is that we're sourcing it to the web map services. So if there are any future updates to this, it just gets uploaded automatically. Again, the update for the rest of the town, or, you know, most of the town hasn't been updated since 2008. There are other areas in Western New York that haven't been updated since the 70s or 80s. So I have no expectation of when the rest of the town will be updated.
But if a new panel was to show up, it would be automatically incorporated? Is that what you kind of implied?
Yes.
Okay.
But it would not be a surprise. Part of the documentation here is that I mentioned when we were notified. So we originally received notice in September of 2022 about this update to the two panels. There was a 90-day appeal period for the mapping, which opened on March 12th, 2023. Yeah, the appeals supported by scientific or technical data can be considered before FEMA makes its final flood hazard determination. And yeah, so yeah, this is kind of stating how some of those, or the update in 2008 could be considered relatively new, considering some of the areas in Western New York haven't been updated since the 70s or 80s. So yes, that's, you know, just in summary of that process that, you know, while we adopted it in 2024 of last year, we originally heard about the update back in the fall of 2022. So it's a pretty lengthy process to update them. We received notice years in advance. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, and there was one open comment there just about storing local copies, and Katie, I think that had been your comment. However, Matt's response was that they don't move that much.
Yeah,
So-
I think I was thinking that they were accessing federal data whenever they needed to, but it seems like that's not the case, that
Yeah.
it's like a static document that, yeah.
Yeah,
I understand.
not like either the streams or wetlands. Like those, especially right now, are changing quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, yeah, we can certainly, like when an update is made, we will store a local copy of it, but yeah, it's not something that's updated all that often.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
Should we table this and move into new business?
I think I would prefer to be able to cover the couple of new business items and then complete the rest of this at our next meeting.
Okay.
I think even with the presentation, we should have time to do that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
So,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you, Matt. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Okay, so transitioning to new business. First one is just a real quick update on a couple of events that had been scheduled through the Park and Rec magazine. So, Katie?
Yeah, thank you. Color Penfield Green was running 2 classes in conjunction with the town's Clean Energy Communities campaign, the Clean Heat, Cool Savings class, and EVs 101. We had lower than hoped for registrations, so we decided to cancel those classes, but we were able to record the last sessions, and so if anybody is interested in the content, they should still register for the class, and we can email the recordings of previous classes. And the information will only be, it won't be that old. It'll be from February or January, so.
Okay, thank you. Then other new business, an update on our June meeting.
Yeah, so for June, we have scheduled Madison Quinn from Monroe County DES. She's the sustainability coordinator, and she'll be presenting on Monroe County's climate action plan, which lends itself to the town's efforts to develop an RFP for Penfield's climate action plan.
Okay.
So similar to our last speaker, we'll go through the approval of the minutes, then we'll jump right into the presentation. And like I said, have some time at the end of the meeting to go through the rest of our EPOD discussion.
And she was at our event, our Arbor Day event as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys get to meet her, those of us that were there.
Mm-hmm. In preparation, in the drop for the next meeting, or maybe just a follow-up so you guys have plenty of time between this meeting and now, I can provide a link to the county's climate action plan, so you can kind of go through that and familiarize yourself with that document before she presents.
You can also review one of the previous Monroe County Environmental Management Council meetings from maybe a year ago, where she gave the updates when they went through the stage 1 and then the stage 2 of the process. So that information's out there as well. Okay. The next one is on the pollinator pathway.
Yeah, so I think we briefly talked about this last time, and this is more just an update, just letting the committee know that the town's partnering with Color Penfield Green to establish a pollinator pathway program in Penfield. This will involve drafting a town website for residents to learn about the program, along with an application and a yard sign specific to the program. I keep saying program, and I realize that not everybody realizes what the pollinator pathway program is. Essentially, it'll be something that residents can elect to plant native species on their property, or prohibit the use of pesticides on their property, and provide habitat for pollinators. So that's not just having the plants, but even just having, rocks or dead trees or things like that can support pollinators. And you effectively, do all this, and all that information would be on a town website. You would fill out an application, bring it to the town recreation department, and they would they would give you a sign that will, acknowledge your involvement in the program. There'll be a little QR code on there so that your neighbors can go to the town's website, learn more about the program. But so far, there's Brighton and Pittsford. Am I thinking, are there any others in Monroe County? No. So those are the 2 others that we're kind of modeling it after. I think the one thing that is something that this committee has wanted to see the town do is provide a native plant list. And so that will be, we're kind of modeling what Brighton and Pittsford has done, where we'll have sort of a consolidated list of native species and then a link to the Cornell Cooperative more comprehensive list. Just from the advice from Healthy Arts Penfield, the Cornell Cooperative is a very extensive and it's a very comprehensive list of all the plant species native to this area, but we're just trying to, make it so that there's like, a dozen or so of different types of plants that can be commonly found in our area that you can plant in your property and identify easily. So we'll have that as, it's differing from Brighton or Pittsford where they have that list on their application. We're keeping it separate because we're thinking that that list applies to more than just this program. So you can refer to it in any application if anybody wants to know more about native plants in your community. That could be one thing that they can reference without having to, look at the application materials. So while they'll be hosted on the same website, you'll be able to reference the document separately. So.
Okay. With this program going forward, would we want to put back on the agenda, talk about a town flower that's a native pollinator?
I think that discussion, from my understanding, kind of where we left it, it has to be a request from the town board. That was my understanding, just because it is adopted, we can make a recommendation to the town board, but effectively the current town flower, the clematis,
yeah.
I can't remember the exact date, but there's a lot of historical significance and cultural significance to why that flower was chosen. And so we need to kind of weigh that with, the promotion of native plants. There are other ways of promoting native plants other than having it designated as the town flower. So,
okay.
Yeah, there's...
Because we weren't going to eliminate that one. It was like the town flower and then maybe a suggested pollinator.
Pollinator, yeah.
The town
Native.
pollinator.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting twist to it, wouldn't
Right.
it? Well,
Isn't
it could be
there-
something that we're all certainly welcome to talk to our town board members and see if that's something that they would want to consider doing.
All right.
Right? Okay. I do think it's just interesting with the pollinator pathway because there was several avenues of promoting this, including looking at a couple of the national level ones. But both Brighton and Pittsford decided to go with a local option. And that's what I think Penfield is kind of also going along with and not aligning with any of the specific national ones. So.
Yeah, there's like a very specific pollinatorpathway.org that's a national program. Originally, the town was considering just kind of directing residents to register on that site and then come to the town to get a sign. Just for, it's already an established site, and you can register your lawn and have it put on the national map. After consulting with Healthy Yards Penfield, it seemed more appropriate to have a site that gives you very local information about pollinators in your area and kind of control the information there. So that's where we decided to go more with the town website and have town staff kind of maintain the information there.
So where's that on the town website where you can go in for the application? Because I searched pollinator and I can't
It's not
find
there
it.
No,
yet.
it's not.
Oh,
It's
it's
still
not.
being
Okay.
drafted.
Yeah, no, this is new. This is hot off the press.
Hot off the press. I love
But
it.
to get more information on native plants, the Healthy Yards Penfield and Color Penfield Green are having a native plant sale on May 18th. So that is an opportunity for residents not only to go select a plant or more than one, but they can actually see what some of these look like and, how they would grow. So that's at Penrec, starting 11 o'clock to 2 p.m. So I did want to put that in there. So
Starting at 10 a.m.?
11 a.m.
11 a.m.
Yep. Yeah. Okay, it does look like we're very close to our time, so are there any other items that should be discussed today? If not, we're going to roll a bunch of stuff over to another one, so, okay, oh no, I just get to declare it, right? Every once in a while I forget this thing. So at this time, I have 5:59 p.m. I will call this meeting of the Penfield Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee adjourned.